Welcome to the Men Don't Talk podcast. My name's Reggie. This Men Don't Talk is about what men don't talk about or what we can talk about. It's about opening up a dialogue between men and getting ourselves talking. We talk about a wide range of topics. We talk about men's mental health. We talk about, what's going on, physical health and kind of suicide and gangs and anything really, and sort of like I've got my guests on here today. Also as well, I like to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Loved Ones Forever. They are a company that restore broken and ruined photographs that have been destroyed in flood and fire. And if you want to get to know a little bit more about them, kind of hook us up in the DMs. And tonight's guest is James, who's come along. He's come along to kind of have a chat, kind of see what's going on. So what's going on for you, James? What do you want to talk about?
What we don't talk about.
Well, go on then. Give us some.
Third time lucky.
Third time lucky.
Third time lucky.
Well, it has taken a little bit of time to get here, hasn't it? And, now we're here. So we were talking about earlier, we was having a conversation earlier about kind of what's it like to be a man, and kind of all that sort of stuff and kind of society's pressures and stuff like that. So what's your take on that?
Well, it's like I was saying to you, when I think about that subject and I put myself in being one of the lucky ones, like in the lineage of my family. So if I look at my father, his father, and so on, and I look at me as the lucky one that I have the opportunity now to be a man, 43, in recovery again, and what advantages that gives me. And just by being in recovery, I am talking a language. I'm talking I'm talking a different vibration to them men before me. But
so why did it take to come into recovery? Why did it take that to open that up? Why wasn't anything there before to kind of? I get that. Like growing up is difficult for anyone, especially. Do you know, I heard something the other day on the radio that was kind of, it's harder for kids today than it was. I don't think it's no harder or no different. I think just the situations have changed.
I think it's just there's different avenues to different distractions.
Yeah.
In terms of what our society is, kind of our social media distraction. We have all these devices on all these platforms that are social structures, social platforms, but yet it is creating less connections, more and more distractions. In so much as when you say, how did I get here? It's like, if you think about institutions that, I look at it as programming, first and foremost. I look at it as programming. So if I look at my kind of early upbringing, in my home, we grow when you're growing up, you learn from your parents how to communicate. And if you had a father that was emotionally void and a mother who was kind of overbearing or smothering, you could say, I kind of always described that growing up as almost bipolar. It's from one extreme to the other.
It's negative programming, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was almost like
it's a lot of negative, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was almost like from one extreme to the other. There was kind of extreme emotion and no emotion, and then kind of going further, like into school. Again, as a young kid, quite insecure. Not sure of themselves. I went into a system which, would reward you for being naughty. I always look at my schooling as there was 99 ways to punish you and one way to give you an affirmation if you did something good. So my kind of little young mind, is like, where do I get the treats? It was like, I'll be naughty,
I remember when I was in school and we was put into the we done something wrong, and we was put into the thing called the link, and like there was this like tables either side, the chairs and the table things, and like, you used to have to sit there and then like the teachers would walk up and down and they would ask you what you've done wrong, and you just have to tell them all. You know, so I used to make up different shit. You know what I mean? And but the thing is, with that, like growing up in when I was younger. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and you know, it seems a long time ago now. But you know, I don't think. I mean, society's got a lot more. I would say weak. You know, and people can't take things. You know, I mean, beforehand, a teacher would tell you some home truths about yourself, and you'd go home and you know you'll get a clump off your mum and dad. You know, because you was kind of, that was probably pretty much what you was like, and people are frightened to kind of put their opinion across. You know, I only found out that in the arena of how I've taken my recovery, that I've had a couple of experiences. No one's ever turned around and said, you are exactly like this. They've told me in a very kind and gentle way, you know, and not like a teacher. You know, a teacher would, and you'd have your head down and everything else.
I remember a teacher in my school once, right, saying to me, he went, James, I know how you're going to end up in front of all the class, right? Yeah. And ironically, he was right. But at the time, he went, you're going to leave school, you're probably going to be a little common criminal, you'll probably get an addiction, and you'll probably go to prison. And I remember him saying
spot
that.
on.
And he was spot on.
Yeah, he was spot
at the time. But I always thought that if I was lucky enough not to go to school when there was the cane, right?
Yeah.
Because I would have been getting it every day,
right?
How
old are you?
43.
43.
I went to school in the 90s.
I mean, I'm 52, and the cane and that was probably a bit like, I think it was.
80s, wasn't it? End of the 80s, wasn't it?
End of the 80s, yeah. But the thing is, I'm in the school system then, and by then, like, you know,
your
like,
secondary school.
I mean, your mum and dad weren't even allowed to eat you by then, you know. But I mean, obviously,
you tell them that.
Yeah, but apparently they wasn't. You know what I mean? Because you had all that.
I mean, having said
when they brought out Childline, yeah, that was running off the hook for a lot of people. You know, there's a lot of kids getting taken into care they didn't need to. You know, but you know, growing, I think people get offended more now.
No, yeah, coming back to what you were saying about that sensitivity, right? There's a balance, right? I'll play devil's advocate here, but there is a balance to that. It's like, my old man was someone who expressed himself with his hands a lot. Yeah, he didn't get emotional, right? He expressed himself with his hands a lot, and that, I'd say, hasn't wholly benefited me as a man now. Right.
That wouldn't, no, would it?
But when you say about sensitivity of society, I think there's an element within that where if I stepped out of line, now me as a young kid, I was difficult to bring up and have boundaries, and as I've learned, boundaries are really important. Yeah, boundaries are really important, you know, to have, and I pushed against that, and my dad was someone that enforced it a lot. Yeah. So if I changed the roles, it's like I was a difficult kid. I really was. But I kind of do get what you're saying about the sensitivity of society, because that kind of old school teaching just doesn't fit in society anymore. And
but it doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit because society deems it wrong. But then if you look at what is happening in the elements of society where the father, right, doesn't put the boundaries down, or there isn't boundaries to growing up, what happens to that mind? Well, a boundless mind is dangerous.
I mean, boundaries really, for me, start now. They start inside. I have to have boundaries with myself for starters, and then, but also as well, what is important is that if you are saying to someone, no, don't go there, you've placed a boundary. Keeping it in your head is just simply not good enough, because people cross boundaries on a daily basis. You know, like, they will cross boundaries on a daily basis unless you go, no, you know what, that ain't happening. And people do that all the time. You know, all the time, like you go home and or your girlfriend will say, you know, if you do that, like you've done that and you've stepped a boundary. Well, matter of fact, you never said that I'll be stepping a boundary if I did that. So you kind of tricked me, really. You know what I mean? And they go, yeah, but I knew you was going to do it. Well, why you fucking asking? You know? A lot of the time it's like, when we're dealing with boundaries, it's hard to have boundaries with your parents because they're the ones giving you care and you're the one receiving
it. But then there's also that natural thing of you rebelling. You know,
well, that was your reaction to it, wasn't it?
Because that's how we, as a youngster, you find your character, your identity by pushing back. You gain ground, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, you want to be yourself. So there's that kind of symbiosis that happens.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think with the like with that upbringing of yours and the way he was, it it added to you know, I mean, resentment, anger, and fear is the triangle of self-obsession. You know, and when we're in that triangle of self-obsession, we become emotionally immature.
Emotionally disabled.
Yeah,
if I look back at my
yeah
my teenage years in expressing myself, I was emotionally disabled.
I mean, we were stuck in that triangle of self-obsession.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's kind of a very, very fertile ground for drugs.
Well, when I read that literature of the triangle of self-obsession, when it says, as addicts, we fought along the way, right? Yeah, fuck me, I faltered. You know, I really did, you know, and kind of, it was easy for me to, I mean, but I've met guys that have grown up in a completely loving, all wholesome family, and, you know, there's one addict amongst 5 or 4, and there's one addict that just kind of, he's the one that's caught, like, he goes to rehab and they...
But what's the common bond we have as addicts? If you sit in a room and say that void, that there was always something missing, lacking.
Yeah, and
that programming comes from that emotional disability.
Well, they said, like we live reality in reverse. You know, everything was in reverse, and that comes down to another sense of like upside down thinking. You know, if like majority of the time, the way I looked at things was upside down. I wasn't, you know, but what I needed was someone to right size it. And when I found a person to help me right size it, it was my first sponsor that I had, and we started talking about stuff, and he was going, hold on, Reg, hold on, whoa. Are you telling me, like, I'm trying to get out of it and make myself look smart, and I'm not, you know, because I knew I was wrong. My thinking was upside down. You know, when you look at that saying on that saying in places, it says think, and it's upside down. And there's an actual acronym that goes with think. Yeah, and I'll get it up for you at some point. and the actual it's meant to be upside down for a reason, because majority of the time my thinking is upside down. The way I process things is upside down. I've got a lot better. You know, and I've got a lot better at it. But the thing is, it's only through putting my life under a microscope and having no fear and working closely in recovery to find out about myself and where things are inside. And when you going back to when you spoke about the upbringing and having and going into that arena and finding someone you can talk to, I'll put it down to trust, really. I'll put it down to trust. If I can find someone that I can trust, and talk to, my life becomes a lot better. I can't trust my father, I can't trust my mother, I can't trust any of them, I can't trust some of my friends, I can't trust none of them. Yeah, but the thing is, all of a sudden I trust a man that helps me with it, and it's incredible that after all the years of like kind of being trained and being locked into addiction, that I can then trust someone. You know,
It comes from that. As you were speaking, I was thinking about that sort of first time I got a sponsor, and that first time I started asking for help. And I remember what happened was like I struggled at first because I used to put them in the role of either the father figure, which then I would not really want to tell him the truth. I'd try and hide the truth because that was the relationship with my dad. Like feed him what I need to feed him to make him like information to make him be okay. Like that codependent kind of, are you okay? You know what I mean? Oh, he's in the environment of like, how's the emotional landscape? Let me make sure everyone's kind of okay, then I'll be okay. Do you know what I mean? And I remember taking that ability into recovery. You know, we do, don't we? We bring this stuff with us, and we learn how to live differently.
Like fixing
fixing
people's emotional needs.
Yeah, and then also at the side, other part of that, the flip side of that was also putting kind of someone in the kind of peer position or the friend's position. Do you know what I mean? Because for me, there's been a lot of loss with that. Like my schoolmate, who I grew up with, he was killed the summer after we came out of school. He was killed, and it was. I remember not even asking anyone to help. I remember my.
Had you found drugs by now?
Yeah.
I mean, but why would you?
Very much so.
Why would you ask for help?
But I remember...
Because we remember we're trying to fix ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, but I remember being in a place with that emotionally, right, where I was lost. I was totally lost. And I remember everyone around me never had any of the coping strategies or abilities to help either. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but some of them didn't end up addicts.
No, but like, I remember how I was able to deal with that, and it was burying myself into chemicals.
Well,
in
it's easy. It's easier to do that though, isn't it? Like to addiction is the response to human suffering. So what happens
human
is
suffering is part of life.
Yeah, but a human doesn't have to suffer. You know, a human. There is a word called serenity that you can touch on if you wanted to. You know, it doesn't have to be that hard. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, it's that learn, and that's my point. That's what I was getting at. It's the learning to let go and learn and when to ask for help. See, the flip side of that again was I was in that position, in a lot of pain, right, and not knowing who to turn to. You know, family, friends. It's like thinking, almost like this is like a film. This shouldn't really happen. Do you know what I mean? Like 1 minute your best mate's dead, the next minute he's gone. It's like, and not knowing how to ask for help. And I remember I got very angry, and that anger turned very much on myself. Do you know what I mean? And then, coming to the point where I did ask for help, coming back to the first sponsor relationship, that was the first person, I opened up to. Do you know what I mean? And that was a changing moment. Do you know what I mean? And for me, I suppose it was a baptism in so much as a baptism to the program. Like I know I then experienced what this program could do for me by going through the steps with a sponsor.
Yeah, I've had different experiences with different sponsors.
Yeah, and I've
had different experiences with that. But both of them, I felt I can ring them up now, and do you know, it's funny because they ring me up as well, and it's like a two-way street. And I was speaking with a guy the other day, and he said, I don't speak to any of my friends like the way me and you just spoke. And I go, I get that. I get that.
Non-recovery.
Yeah.
Well, there is a language
there's a couple of people that I do speak. I mean, there's one guy I do speak, and we can get deep on it. All my other friends, they like, there's one guy I get deep with, and but there's other guys that I won't even get anywhere close. And the thing is, I used to be out my nut, and they used to go at me, Reggie, you're so fucking deep. And I'd go like, and I think to myself, well, you asked the question, and
you just made me think about those kind of those stoned off your head cosmic conversations.
Well, like Cheech and Chong movie.
Do you know what I mean? You just took me back to the moments of going, like, yeah, it's funny, yeah.
I remember that, like, kind of sitting there on a really sunny day with the curtains drawn. Yeah,
That's addiction.
with like a smoke-filled room and like a kind of and a bong or whatever sitting there,
Looking at like them old westerns.
Like
Yeah,
like
the smoke hanging in the room.
and there's just so much smoke there. I mean, my sister had a budgie once,
Once, yeah, because the smoke
well,
killed it. I
the
bet,
smoke
didn't
killed it. Yeah, yeah. And I remember like all different things like hot rocks and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And burning my fucking t-shirt and burning my balls, burning me bloody. I had burn marks all over me. You know what I mean? From
Burning your new Ben Sherman.
But, when I've had Ben Sherman, I didn't really like them.
No,
I weren't really into Ben Sherman.
More of a Ralphie boy.
Yeah, it was more Ralph. I kind of, I never really got into Ben Sherman. I mean, Gabeachies, you know, I had them, you know. But the thing is, growing up in this environment, kids are growing up today. I mean, I speak to my son. I've got a 16-year-old son, and you know, he's very like don't say a lot. You don't get a lot out of him, you know. Every now and then, but it's worth it. You know what I mean? Sometimes silence is good. You know, sometimes.
I wish I was a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Well, my mouth's got me in trouble in the past.
Yeah.
And again, it's coming back to those that teacher. I remember people like that used to say that. They'd say that to you, and it echoes into the future.
Mm.
But then there's a balance to everything, isn't there? You know what I mean? You know, things change and you adapt. And when it comes to that kind of idea of kind of how to be, you know, for your, like you said, like your son, quieter, you know, there's a different evolution of things, isn't it? And things change.
So what do you reckon it'll be like for kids in the next 10 or 15 years? I mean, where can you see where this is going? I mean, all this stuff. Do you reckon men will be able to talk to each other?
By default, I think, you know, we have role models now, whether we are comfortable or not with it, who are in the limelight, they're in media, they're one of us, people like, you know, who are in recovery. Recovery is being talked about in a very different way. When I got into recovery very first time in 2003, saying that you were in NA was dirty. You were still dirty. People still judged you. Do you know what I mean? When you said recovery, they go, "What do you mean by that?" And you explain to them, and they would go, "Oh, right." And people get uncomfortable. But we're now where we are now. I think as a male who is in recovery and proud of that, things have changed a lot because what we're seeing is people in media. And people that occupy the archetype of warrior male. For instance, the boxer Tyson Fury, right, heavyweight champion. He holds this role of warrior. Yeah. Ideally in society.
I mean, but what else could he do? Look at the size of him.
But my point.
I mean, what else could he do though?
But my
seriously,
point is,
like, I mean, come on, he wouldn't be a ballet dancer, would he?
No,
he wouldn't be that. Would he?
The point I'm making is that he has spoken out about his mental health, hasn't he?
He has. Yeah.
Now, what other boxer who has these titles in the history of that has done that? And that's a change we see.
Do you think there's a connection? I've been watching this over years. Like, do you think men have ever been able to talk? Because if you look back at, we're still suffering from 100 years of war in this country. We're 100 years worth of generations of grandfathers, great-grandfathers who've been to war, seen trench warfare. That must have been brutal.
A type of war we'll never see again.
Never ever see trench warfare,
again.
Trench foot and fucking tunnelling and all that shit.
Yeah, and watching your mate getting killed right next to you.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah,
that kind of war won't happen again. And
so the thing is, remember, these are the guys that have,
who are a lineage.
That's right. So if they were shut down, they taught that to shut down. They taught that to shut down. You know, and I've looked at that over because there's a bit in the other fellowship in AA, and it says around where guys come back from the war and how they
Spiritual
how
shell
they
shock.
did. Well, yeah, how they didn't use in the trenches and like imagine that. Like you're in the fucking trenches, you've got mud up to there, yeah, and like you can't even have a drink.
Well,
Yeah,
the thing I notice now is you're getting soldiers that are coming out saying they got PTSD. They're speaking about it.
Yeah, but people get PTSD by living in the streets. You know, anyone can get PTSD. It's not. I mean, you know, seeing any form of warfare must be absolutely mind blowing to see that. Do you know what I mean? One day you're walking in the streets of New Cross, yeah, and the next day you're in a fucking trench somewhere, or you're running around Basra. You know what I mean? And kind of that stuff is like kind of mind blowing. But the thing is, what it is, life. You know why? I mean, I try not to make my life as traumatic as life is actually very traumatic. You know what I mean? You know, after having the day that I've had, yeah, with my chops, yeah, that's traumatic. But the thing is, look, life goes on, you know. So we're going to wrap this up in a minute. So, you know, thank you for coming along.
Pleasure.
Yeah. You want to come back, and I know you're going to be a part of this. You're going to do some stuff with us with the TikTok. Yeah, we do all that. See, I don't even know what it is. You know, just about know what YouTube is. You know, but anyway, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Loved Ones Forever. If you like what you see, like, subscribe, and share, and get back to us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.